The crash before Nintendo. To appreciate how important the NES was, you first have to understand just how bad things were before it arrived. The video game crash of 1983 wasn't just a slowdown, it was catastrophic. Atari, which had dominated the market, had become sloppy. They released too many consoles, all competing with each other, and allowed a flood of low-quality games onto store shelves. One of the most infamous disasters was E.T., the extraterrestrial. Atari rushed its development in only a few weeks, and the result was a confusing, buggy mess. Millions of copies went unsold, and the company ended up burying the cartridges in a desert landfill in New Mexico. That became a symbol of the industry's downfall. Retailers felt burned. Shelves were overflowing with games nobody wanted, and customers had lost confidence. By 1984, the US gaming market had shrunk by 97% compared to its peak. To many, video games looked like a failed experiment, a fad that had run its course. It was the perfect time for Nintendo to step in with a bold new vision. Nintendo's secret weapon, quality control. Nintendo understood that trust had been broken, so when they launched the NES, they introduced something revolutionary, the Nintendo Seal of Quality. This gold emblem wasn't just a piece of branding, it was a promise. Every game with that seal had been reviewed and approved by Nintendo for quality and playability. This single move separated Nintendo from Atari. Parents who had been burned by bad games now had a way to know their purchase was safe. The seal became a household symbol of reliability, but Nintendo went even further. They imposed strict licensing agreements on third-party developers, limiting how many games each company could release per year. At first, this felt restrictive to developers, but in the long run, it ensured quality over quantity. It forced companies to bring their best ideas to the table. That decision built the foundation for the NES library becoming legendary, redefining the console. Look, Nintendo knew they had to overcome not just bad games, but also bad perception. To retailers, the phrase video game console was toxic after the crash, so Nintendo got creative. Instead of calling the NES a console, they marketed it as an entertainment system. The design reflected that. Unlike Atari systems, the NES looked sleek and modern, almost like a VCR. The front-loading cartridge tray gave it a futuristic vibe, and the packaging didn't just highlight games, it highlighted accessories. When bundled with items like the Zapper light gun or ROB, the robot, it felt more like a cutting-edge toy than another failed console. That design decision mattered. It convinced skeptical retailers to stock the NES, and it convinced families that this wasn't just another piece of junk. It was something new and exciting. The birth of legendary franchises. If hardware got people's attention, software won their hearts. The NES wasn't just a machine. It was the birthplace of some of the most important franchises in gaming history. Super Mario Bros. Revolutionized platformers, introducing smooth controls, hidden secrets, and worlds that felt alive. It wasn't just a game, it was a cultural phenomenon. Kids would hum the music, draw Mario on their notebooks, and share playground tips about warp pipes. Then came The Legend of Zelda, a game that redefined adventure. Players were dropped into a vast world full of secrets, dungeons, and items to discover. For many, it was the first time a game felt like an epic journey. Other hits followed. Metroid introduced atmosphere and non-linear exploration. Punch-Out turned boxing into an arcade classic. And Kirby's Adventure gave players a lovable pink hero with unique abilities. These weren't just successful games. They became pillars of Nintendo's identity. Franchises that still thrive today. The NES didn't just save gaming, it created gaming icons. Accessories that expanded gaming. The NES was more than a controller and a TV screen. Nintendo innovated with accessories that made gaming feel interactive and social. The Zapper light gun let players blast ducks and duck hunt, making kids feel like sharpshooters. The Power Pad allowed full-body motion gaming decades before Wii Fit. And while ROB, the robot, wasn't a lasting success, it played a crucial role in marketing. It gave the NES a futuristic, toy-like appeal that made it easier to sell in toy stores. Not every accessory was perfect, but they gave the NES a sense of variety and possibility. Gaming wasn't just sitting still with a joystick anymore. It was evolving into something more dynamic and engaging. Third-party developers and partnerships. Nintendo's strict licensing rules might have been tough, but they also laid the groundwork for some of the most iconic third-party titles ever. Developers like Capcom, Konami, and Square brought their best work to the NES. creating classics that gamers still talk about today. Capcom gave us Mega Man. Konami brought Castlevania and Contra. Square introduced Final Fantasy, the beginning of one of the most successful RPG series ever made. These games expanded the NES library far beyond Nintendo's first-party titles, offering players endless reasons to keep playing. The partnership strategy worked. Nintendo built a healthy ecosystem where both first-party and third-party games thrived, something Atari had completely failed to achieve. The sales numbers that changed everything. The final proof of the NES's success is in the numbers. The console sold over 60 million units worldwide, dominating the market. But beyond raw sales, it accomplished something even more important. It restored faith. Retailers once again believed in gaming. Parents once again trusted that games were worth buying. And developers saw gaming as a profitable industry worth investing in. The NES sparked a domino effect. Its success inspired competitors like Sega to re-enter the market and eventually set the stage for Sony and Microsoft. Without Nintendo's gamble, the entire gaming industry might have died in the US. Nintendo's genius, marketing, and distribution. One of Nintendo's most brilliant moves was its marketing strategy. After the crash, American retailers wanted nothing to do with video games, so Nintendo had to be clever. Instead of pushing the NES as just another console, they marketed it as a family entertainment device. That's why bundles included toys like ROB and games like Duck Hunt. It wasn't pitched to stores as another Atari. It was pitched as something entirely new. Nintendo also used test markets to roll out the NES. They launched it first in New York City in 1985, one of the toughest retail environments in America. If it could succeed there, it could succeed anywhere. And it did. Parents loved it, kids begged for it, and word spread quickly. From there, the NES rolled out nationwide, backed by aggressive TV commercials, toy store promotions, and holiday campaigns. This smart marketing approach made the NES more than a console launch. It was a cultural event. Cultural impact and legacy. Finally, the NES's greatest achievement might not be sales or even games. It was its cultural impact. The NES turned gaming into a permanent part of family life. It wasn't just for arcades anymore. It was something that lived in the living room, right alongside the TV and VCR. The console inspired Saturday morning cartoons, the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, cereal boxes, lunch boxes, clothing, and schoolyard conversations. Kids weren't just playing games, they were living in the Nintendo universe. Mario became as recognizable as Mickey Mouse, and Nintendo Power Magazine created a community where players could share tips and strategies. The NES didn't just save gaming, it made gaming mainstream. It turned video games into part of the global culture, setting the stage for the massive industry we see today.